So I want to welcome everyone today to the Inspiring Authors Lunch and Learn with Davis Creative. I want to, we'll be speaking today with Randy Pizer. We'll get to that, her introduction in a second. I want to go over a few logistics for today. The call is being recorded and you'll receive a link to the YouTube video within about 48 hours after this call. Your attendance at these meetings serves as your permission to be seen on the recordings. If you do not want to be seen, go ahead and just put your name up and block your video. Please find your chat button on the bottom of your screen and drop your questions in there, please. And we will try to get to all the questions before the end of our chat today. And we promise we're shooting to end around noon or 12:15 at the latest so that we can all get back to our business of the day. So welcome, Randy. Randy Pizer helps people get book deals with literary agents and publishers. She edits and ghostwrites books and pitches manuscripts to agents and publishers through her company, AuthorOneStop.com. Her authors have been featured in Time Magazine, Cosmo, and Oprah Magazine, on the Wall Street Journal, and in USA Today. She's going to share today what we need to know to get a book deal with a publisher. Welcome, Randy. I'm thrilled that you could be here. We've been trying to make this happen for a couple months, and I'm glad we got it.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be here. And may I share my screen? I have, what I want to do, I'd like to share slides that show different books that I've sold, and I share why they sold. Because, you know, if you have a book inside of you, the tagline for my company is, we perform book appendectomies to get the book inside of you out. And so, you know,
Awesome.
There's the book you want to write and the book a publisher will buy. Are they the same book? And so I want to share that via the screen, if I may.
So I'll make you a co-host here.
Thank you.
There we go.
Good. So let me hit share screen. And can you see me? Can you see my slides here?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, let me escape. I did this so successfully just yesterday, so let me see what
In your practice run,
do.
I know how that works.
Share screen. Here we go. Okay, good.
Yeah, we're running.
Okay, excellent. Okay, this is me speaking just some years ago, and in front of like 250 people at this conference. And what I'm saying is, there's a book you want to write and the book a publisher will buy. Are they the same book? Well, let's go find this out. This is me years ago. This is me in the mid-90s, having written my first book, Crappy Too Happy. It is Mill Valley, California, rush hour on a Wednesday from 4 to 5 p.m. I have given up hope of finding a publisher, but I went and did this from 4 to 5, wearing a dress and high heels, my naturally curly perm. A publisher called me that evening. He offered me the job as editor-in-chief of his national magazine. Notice my sign did not read, author seeks publisher for her book. We have to be very specific for what we're looking for.
That's too funny.
What's that?
That's too funny. Yeah, you do have to be specific. I love that.
Yes, I call that a random act of chutzpah, or in my case, a Randy act of chutzpah. Mm-hmm. So I want to give you an idea of the playing field in traditional publishing. This is an image from Book Expo America. And for 19 years, I pitched books here. It just closed because of COVID and it won't be reopened. But it gives you an idea of the scope and what I call the feeding frenzy of the publishing industry in the United States. And this is where I would go every single year to pitch books. Thankfully, I have 19 years of connections with these agents and publishers. So now I can reach everyone virtually via email and sometimes Zoom meetings, and get responses rather quickly. So I'm very grateful. I no longer have to really compete in this arena. This is an idea of what the show floor looked like. And this is just a little section of Book Expo America. And so every single booth here is some publisher. And it was my job to know what's on each of their shelves, because publishers only buy for their own specific shelves. So that just gives you an idea of the scope. I have a challenge that I want to give to you, and I hope every single person on this call, if you're deciding to write your book or you're working on one, take me up on this challenge. You know, when you write a book, or when you read a book rather, and you see there's usually a quote somewhere in there, often at the top or after the end of the chapter, but usually at the top. My challenge to you is, You be the person that other people quote. You be the person that people create memes off of. You have your own brilliance, your own excellence, your own point of view. Start thinking of just some of the things you say that people go, ooh, I like that. Because you sometimes I hear like gems coming out of people's mouths, but they're not catching it because it's just who they are and it's very familiar to them. But that's my challenge. Don't quote other people. You be the person that other people quote. This is one of my quotes. When I was writing my Crappy to Happy book, I realized I was feeling so much joy in the process of writing. And I said to myself, that which is seeded in joy can only result in joy. So is your process fun? Are you having fun while you're working on your book? And this applies to anything in our lives, not just the book. And here's a secret thing I want to share with you that no one I've ever heard who discusses publishing in any format ever speaks about. And this has to do with the 4-letter F word, fear. And so 20 years ago, when I was at the book expo for the first time in New York, and you saw the size of that feeding frenzy, and it was a deer in the headlights experience for me. It was terrifying. I was intimidated. I had a goal. I had a dream. I wanted to get my foot in the book publishing world. I was an editor-in-chief of a national magazine, but I hadn't published a book yet. And I knew I wanted a career as an author and in the book world. But I had tremendous fear. And here I am at this book expo 20 years ago, and I'm walking with a very dear friend of mine, Jill Lublin, who's a national publicity strategist. And we're walking along, and all of a sudden she starts seeing some different people with press badges. And Jill goes, CNN, and she's running after them. And I was, CNN, oh my God. And then I'm running after her. And I had what I call this little hiccup. I call it the hiccup of hesitation. But I was still going for that goal, but there was that little hiccup, that little voice of fear. We're walking along later and she goes, USA Today, and she's running after them. And I'm going, USA Today, and I'm following. And I decided I wanted to overcome that hiccup of fear. I wanted to be fearless. And I decided, but I was still scared. I was intimidated. And I decided that I was going to physically model my friend Jill on the show floor, who had no hiccup of hesitation. We're walking along, we're looking at various publishing booths. All of a sudden, I said, Ladies Home Journal. And I went right after that person and got that business card and made that connection. And so what I say to myself, whenever I feel a hiccup of hesitation, and I say to myself, go, go. Go. No hiccup. So notice anywhere in your life where you have these hiccups, and can you say to yourself, can you anchor that for yourself? Go and make it happen. What story do you want to tell? What I'd like you to do in the chat, and Kathy, if you would please let me know, because I'm not looking at the chat while I'm seeing a big image of slides here. I just like to know, are you writing fiction? If you're writing nonfiction, are you writing a business book, a memoir, how-to, personal growth, mind, body, spirit, just general categories. So I want to make sure that I speak to the things that are most important to you in your heart. So can you just share some of those with me,
Kathy? We've got some memoirs, children's picture books. I know we have some children's book authors on today.
Okay.
Inspirational stories, memoirs, fiction, young adult fantasy.
Okay, for somebody who just said fiction, also just put what genre of fiction, because I guess there's so many of them.
Yeah, I have leadership, learned experiences, entrepreneur guide, inspirational self-empowerment, rural college prep.
Okay.
Interesting.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's one publisher I work with who they do New York Times bestsellers in the college prep category. So good, very good. Excellent.
Memoir.
So that gives me a general idea. I have a lot of slides, so I tend to speak quickly. I apologize for that, but I do want to make time for don't be this guy. What's the right sequence? One of the things that I see people doing out of sequence is they'll contact me saying, you know, I sent my manuscript out to all of these different agents and I'm just getting a pile of rejections. And so I'll say things like, well, has your manuscript been analyzed yet to make sure it's as strong as it needs to be? No. Has it been edited yet? No. Do you have a book proposal? If it's nonfiction, a business plan called a book proposal, which is not a query letter. A book proposal is 20 to 30 pages, which we're proving the sale of your book in different categories. Did you submit that? No. Okay, then you're doing things out of sequence. So please do things in the proper sequence. So here are some of the books I've worked with. In October, this book came out. I pitched this book, the woman, the author, as the new Erin Brockovich, because publishers could easily wrap their mind around that. This is a whistleblower book. It came out in October. In October, Publishers Weekly called it one of their 25 top picks, and it has since won 5 major awards. So there's always a very unique way to pitch a project. This book originally had an incredibly boring title about the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and Hurricane Katrina, blah, blah, blah. And I saw a quote in the book by the author, and she said, "Beware of words whispered in water." And I said, "Words whispered in water, there's your title." And this book is just, just going gangbusters. The Prepared Investor, now this book came out just this past March. Now, one of the things that's important to publishers have to do with your numbers. And so this author, obviously, LinkedIn is going to be where he should be on social media. He had 2 LinkedIn profiles. He had 10,000 people for his business profile on LinkedIn and 1,000 people for his personal profile. I had 25 live meetings in New York before COVID when I was pitching this book, 22 meetings with publishers, 3 with top literary agents. And those agents in separate meetings, they were whispering, they were saying, delete the 1,000, those numbers are too small. If you're serious about traditional publishing, you've got to raise your numbers. Minimally, you need to be at 10,000. And was this book timely? Oh yeah. If you look at, is your material timely? Can you make your material timely and relevant to what's happening today? Today, when you see how to prevent the next crisis from affecting your financial independence, well, we've been in a COVID crisis. Perfect timing for this book.
Randy, can I step back one? Can I step back one real quick with a question? When you're talking about making sure your numbers, what numbers are you talking about? Your followers on social media?
There are 2 numbers that publishers look at. Typically, they're looking at your followers and they're looking at the amount of engagement you have with your audience. So, I was on a Zoom call, this is about 6 months ago, and I was pitching 9 projects to this one acquisitions editor. And so I can see her because we're on Zoom and she's looking my people up, wherever their demographic is, whether it was LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram. And she'd go, "Oh no, numbers are too small, done." I was pitching Angelina Jolie's literary agent. This was live in New York. And he looked up my author on YouTube and said, "Numbers too small." Click, done. One of the things that I help people do is leverage other people's numbers. So yes, your numbers have to be important. They have to be strong. But I also send all of my clients a templated letter so we can leverage other people's numbers. You've probably gotten these emails yourself in your own inbox. So-and-so's book, my friend so-and-so's book is coming out on this day. Would you please buy it? Well, I send you a letter that you can send out to all those contacts so we can get the size of the list they're reaching. And we leverage other people's numbers. The Chiron Effect. Now, this book came out just this past November. It's in every Barnes & Noble across the country. It's a mind, body, spirit book. And the publishers just sold the rights in December in China of all places. So I thought that was really cool. The Tao of Influence in the leadership category. This book came out in October, was on the Wall Street Journal bestseller list for 5 weeks. We edited the book. I sold it within 2 weeks, which is almost unheard of. Okay, here's a question for everyone. What kind of nonfiction books, just based on content alone, are the easiest, are the quickest yes that a publisher will respond to? What do you think? Kathy, what do you see? Nonfiction books.
What are the things out of my way here?
Okay.
Easiest nonfiction. The one you mentioned earlier about money, that I see a lot of those come through. People are interested in making money and making their lives better.
Are people responding? Do we have other guesses?
STEM books for children, financial guidance.
The easiest category of books to sell are business books. Yes, things in the make more money now category, absolutely. But business books in general, I have sold almost for the last 20 years, almost every single business book I've ever worked with. And the few that I haven't sold, like one was a female-centric business book. The year before at the Book Expo, the publishers were looking for female-centric business books, books that apply just to women business owners. Then the next year, when I went back with a female-centric business book to the big Book Expo, the publishers were saying, oh, Barnes and Noble discovered that those books didn't sell as well as business books for general population, so they weren't taking them. So it's been very few, but I just swear, just almost every business book I've ever worked with, I've sold.
Mhm.
Now, this book, it was a book we edited, Four Gifts for the Highly Sensitive. It came out just recently with a Hay House being the largest mind, body, spirit publisher in the world. And it won the Maui Writers Workshop contest. Maui Writers Conference is one of the most prestigious conferences in the country. So that was really cool. This is one of the six-figure deals. And what creates a six-figure deal is someone who has just a huge mailing list and huge leverage partners. Somebody who's playing a big, 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 big game. Same thing, this one got sold in a bidding war and just came out in October. Cosmo is calling it their number 17 best nonfiction book 2020. I sold it under the title of From Bootstrap to Big Time. So never be attached to your title because publishers play with them. And usually it's their marketing departments who are deciding, what's the best title based on what's selling at the Barnes and Nobles. So this is really, really, really fun. I love creating bidding wars whenever we can and securing the agents to do them. Latest publishing trend. There's a big buzzword in the publishing industry, and this is something everyone writing nonfiction needs to know because I hear it from multiple publishers, and I'm going to explain what the buzzword is. The big buzzword now is outcome-driven titles, outcome-driven content. And the McGraw-Hill acquisitions editor, we were doing a Zoom call with one of my clients. She was interested in purchasing the book. McGraw-Hill was offering $17,500 advance on it, and we got $125,000 advance with Simon & Schuster for it. But she explained what outcome-driven content, what she means by that. She said, I'm looking for books that'll take a reader from point A to point B with all the points in between. So by the time the person finishes reading the book, they can actually apply something and do something differently. Mm-hmm. So even if you're writing memoir, what is the outcome? One of the problems with memoir, and memoir can be an incredibly difficult sell because every second or third person is writing one. What makes a memoir more sellable in most instances, I'm speaking in general terms, is if you're answering the question, what's in it for me from the reader's perspective? And put that in your title or in your subtitle. So for example, my first book, Crappy to Happy, what came out, in the early 2000s, wrote it in the mid 90s. My original subtitle for Crappy to Happy was A Journey Out of the Pits and Into the Fruit of Life. And I thought, gee, that's really witty. Publishers are going to love that. No, they changed my subtitle to 4 Steps to Big Happiness Now because it answered the question in the reader's mind. What's in it for me? You must answer that question. So what makes memoir more powerful and more sellable, frankly, to both readers and publishers is to do something like stories from your life followed by steps. Story, steps, story, steps, story, steps. It's a good formula. Start out with your quote at the top, then a story from your life followed by steps. And I suggest that your steps are either action steps or insights based on that story. Action steps or insights. This is very important information I'm giving you if you want readers and if you want a traditional publisher. Stories followed by steps that are actions or insights. Like here, I chose this image because wall-free world. There you go. There's an outcome. Take Back Your Life. Now, this author, she was 60 years old when I sold this book. If you look at her, and the book's gone gangbusters, and look at her tagline here, my no-nonsense approach to health, fitness, and looking good naked. Is looking good naked a very clear outcome that women want? Absolutely. This woman has spoken on stages for Verizon and Google. She's spoken in Malaysia. We're about to help her with a new book now because this book has just gone absolutely gangbusters and she's had it out for years. This book just came out recently. This was an example I was just sharing about prescriptive memoir, about stories and steps. Corey Rosen, the author, he's a host of the Moth Storytelling Hour on NPR in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I just want to share with you the inscription he wrote on this book. He sent me a copy. It just came out in March. And what he wrote is, Randy Pizer, my secret weapon, my spirit animal. I am now someone's spirit animal, folks. Thank you, God bless you. Thank you to you. You're helping so many people and my book's now out in the world. But that was just a really, really fun inscription. Okay. No pie in the sky, people. I want to tell you what pie in the sky is and why publishers will reject your book if they see it. Pie in the sky is when you tell a publisher things you're going to do once your book comes out that you're not doing now. Or if you're saying things like, I'm going to approach X, Y, and Z to provide back cover endorsements for my book. Get commitments, get real commitments. Another pie in the sky I've seen over the years is, I have a friend who has a friend who knows Oprah. Those kind of, second party, third party, get real commitments. Real commitments are meaningful. They will not make publishers roll their eyes. Never tell a publisher that you know your book is going to be a bestseller because of X, Y, Z. You don't know. You don't have the background that they have. No pie in the sky. Share what's real. This was a book, Adrenaline Nation. It was so fun for me. I'm in the San Jose, California airport, and I go into the Hudson booksellers, and there's Adrenaline Nation front and center. This book was difficult to sell, and I want to tell you why. This book, publishers, let me just say, publishers, when they pitch books, their bottom line is they're thinking about Barnes & Noble. Now, every Barnes & Noble book buyer buys for their own shelves, their own category. Now, this book crossed markets, it crossed categories into health because we've got chronic stress, but we also have bankrupting our economy, which is business. So where did this book sit? It took 2 years to sell this book. Fortunately, it wound up in airport bookstores, which I was very happy about. And we did get it sold, but it was a more difficult sell. So think about who is the primary market for your book. And that means if a person walks into Barnes & Noble and they go to the bookshelf that your book sits on, and first of all, what shelf does your book sit on? Do you know? And who is the exact target market reader who's going to pick up your book versus the book right next to yours? That's who you need to know. That's your primary market. This one was an easier book for me to sell, 5 Minutes to Stress Relief, because the author had already been in Cosmo magazine and First for Women. What I didn't know, and I didn't know for almost a year after I sold the book and it was already out, that my very dear friend Jill Lublin, who I mentioned at the beginning, who's a national publicity strategist, had helped position the author to get into those magazines. So it was really fun to learn that we had worked with the same person. I'm not attached to whether people want to self-publish or go traditional publishing. What I want, what is right and best for each person. So what I want to share with you, and these are general terms, if you want to make more money per book, self-publish. If you want to get your book out quickly, self-publish. If you want control over your cover, your title, and every bit of text in there, self-publish. If you are using your book for your career, definitely try for a traditional publisher. Why? My authors who have been in Time Magazine, on the Wall Street Journal bestseller list, in Oprah Magazine, in the airport bookstores, these happened as a result of their books coming out through traditional publishing. You get more bandwidth, usually speaking, generally speaking, and you have national book distribution and potential for foreign rights. So you'll probably make more money per book. Most people will make more money per book self-publishing. But if you are using your book as leverage for your career and you want to be national if you're regional or international if you're national, definitely try for traditional publishing. Here's a true false. Let Kathy know if you self-publish a book, it makes it easier for a publisher to offer you a book deal for your current book or for your next book. What do you think? True or false? Thumbs up, thumbs down. What do you think?
I've got a false, a false.
The falsies are correct. And here's why. Once you've self-published anything, and I was on a Zoom call one time with this acquisitions editor, and I was pitching a project, and the author had previously published a book. She looked it up on Amazon, and with less than 2 seconds with her Nielsen book scan software, she said, oh no, their sales numbers were too low. So they have access, publishers have access to your sales numbers. If you're on Amazon already and you haven't sold 10,000 books in the first year, then a Penguin Random House level or Simon & Schuster level publisher is not going to be interested. If you've sold 3,500 to 5,000 copies of your first book, if it's out on Amazon, then a publisher may be interested, a mid-range publisher may be interested in that book or your next book. So if you, let's say you have a book on Amazon, you've sold in the hundreds or thousands, but the low thousands, but they're not at the 3,500 to 5,000 or 10,000, but you really, really believe in this book. The way that we can convince a publisher is for you to do a GoFundMe, and let's show that publisher 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,500 people who are committed to buying that book. That's the way to get around it. We have to prove numbers. Here's another true false. Do you think literary agents will help you with your publicity? What do you think?
Drum roll, we've got a false.
Again, the falsies have it. I know one agent who does that. Now, it actually behooves an agent to do this because they're taking typically a 15 to 20% commission off of everything that book ever does. And so it would behoove them to do that, but I only know one agent who actively does that. Usually agents are going to find you the traditional publisher, and they're going to negotiate your rights. And as a first-time author, frankly, you don't have a lot that can be negotiated because you don't yet have a track record of sales. But there are certain things that they can negotiate. And of course, any warning bells, any red flags in the contract, they will look out for you as well. There are two parts to getting a book deal. The first part is about your content, which is really about your positioning. And nonfiction authors, you have to own a lane, or you have to be contributing something new to a conversation that's already happening. The more current and more trending of things that's happening in the news, the better your likelihood of getting a book deal. So for example, there are a lot of books in the leadership space. What makes you unique? Can we say in your book proposal in the first paragraph, your title is the first book too? If you can fill in the blank and you're owning a lane, you're bringing something new to the conversation, all of a sudden a publisher's eyebrow is going to go up. Oh, yeah, this is interesting. So I'm always looking for what is unique about your positioning. And I often help people to find that unique, that gem, because we have to do it to get a book deal. The second part is what I call the business of publishing, which is really driven by numbers. So what numbers do publishers look for? As I mentioned, minimally 10,000 in any particular category, especially where your people are. If your book is related to business, you'd better be on LinkedIn and your numbers had better be strong. Personally, I work with a LinkedIn specialist. He brought my numbers from 2,371 people to over 12,000 people in the first year, and now I'm over at 18,000 people. So because, who do I work with? Professionals writing books. So, I'm constantly referring people to him who are in that niche. I have other referral partners because they're niche. They work to build numbers in these different areas where we need them. In Time magazine, I originally sold this book under the author's brand. Like a lot of times people will write a book and they'll title it using something related to their brand or actually using their company's name. Publishers don't care about your brand. I sold this book under something like Smooth Sales because that was the woman's brand, sales being S-A-L-E-S. They changed it to Nice Girls Do Get the Sale. Why? Because The Power of Nice had come out and it was hugely popular at the time. And so the marketing department at this publisher capitalized that. And all of a sudden this book winds up in Time magazine because Nice was trending. Some years later, I got an email from the same author saying she had come out with this ebook about how to get hired using sales closing techniques. I saw that email and I called her and I said, Eleanor, I can sell this book. Write me a proposal. Eleanor wrote the proposal. It was 50 pages long. And I called her. I said, Eleanor, I'm sorry, but this proposal is not going to sell the book. Would you please let me rewrite it? Oh, Randy, I know it's a great proposal. I said, please let me rewrite it. So she trusted me because I had created success for her first book. I rewrote the proposal. She went, oh my God, now I get it. I pitched the proposal to an agent, got her a contract in one day. So he sold the book in less than a week, which is also unheard of. The FedEx office bought 3,000 copies for their stores. Now, this is my secret sauce. This is actually confidential, and it's something that I use to pitch books to both agents and publishers. And I'm sharing this with you, at least page 1 of it. And I pitch books often before we've even written the book or when the book is being written. And what I do, I call this a promo sheet. And what I do is I send my authors a list of questions to answer. I craft the text for the promo sheet that I'm going to send out to agents and publishers to get what I call promises of consideration. No one does this. This is my secret sauce that I'm sharing with you. And so on the first page, it's usually questions related to the content of the book. The second page, I'm sharing about the author's bio and their ability to promote. And we're including your social media links. We're including maybe sample appearances you've done. Anything that I can do to prove the sale of this book in just 2 pages. What I want, all I want to get from an agent or a publisher is, yes, I definitely want to consider this book when it's ready. I actually sold this particular book just based on a promo sheet, which is also unheard of. So after we do the text, I send you the text, you approve it or tweak it. So we've really got the text perfected. Then I send it to graphic design, or people can use their own graphic designer. And once it's ready, I pitch. I also follow up by email. I email all correspondence to all of my clients, so they're always in the loop. They always know who's considering the proposal or the promo sheet. Like, I sent out one. I have a new whistleblower book that's in. I sent it out 2 days ago, just 2 days ago, the promo sheet. The book's still being written. I sent it out to only 4 people because I knew these 2 publishers and these 2 agents were absolutely top target market for this particular book. And these are top agents I'm talking about. 3 of those people have already responded with a yes. I'm waiting to hear back from 1 publisher, but right now I have 2 top agents and a publisher all saying yes, yes, yes. A very quick yes. This book, as I was saying, business books are the easiest to sell. I had 4 contracts offered on Great Mondays, this book on company culture. It went to McGraw-Hill for a $15,000 advance. Outsiders on the inside. The reason I put this picture up here has to do with the title. The original title that the author brought in for this book was Successful Misfits. And I knew that one publisher had told me he would never publish a book that put down the target market reader, being called like a misfit, which I say does not explain the dummies or idiots guides at all. But anyway, this book got sold very quickly because of the change in title.
Quick question. Quick question, Randy. Does an author have to be good at public speaking to also be able to appeal to a publisher?
You have to be very visible, however that is, wherever your following is. Like when I started with Crappy to Happy, I didn't know anything about public speaking. So one of the things that I recommend that you do is write out a list of 10 to 12 questions that someone could ask you. And I want you to make 2 copies of this document. One you could send to hosts of podcasts, but the other document with the same language, the same questions, I want you to write out your answers. That's for you. So you have your answers visible and around you. And maybe you don't have to write out the full language, like sentence, word by word, but you could write like a story you want to tell, just anything that's going to trigger your mind so you can start telling the story. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you will get. When I started out, it was radio, so nobody could even visually see me. So I would do that, send my introductory question, all my questions, but then I'd have all my answers written out. And the more you do it, the easier it actually does get. So generate a list of questions, simple things like, what inspired you to write this book? And also, and think about, the quotes you're going to put in that book, because people can often wrap their minds around quotes or stories. People might not remember anything you say except your story. So for example, the image of me standing on a street corner holding a giant sign, people won't remember what the sign said over years, but years later I might see somebody, oh, you're the person who held that sign. That's what they remember, a visual, create visuals in people's heads. So I hope that's helpful. Kindness in a Scary World. This was a very difficult sell because it was written by a therapist, and this author, she had 3 books. I sold it as a 3-book deal, and the publisher actually came back and requested Kindness in a Scary World first, which was a new one that the author had to write, so basically it became a 4-book deal. This is a book to help children process feelings around bad news, scary news on TV around terrorism. And the author had written books on, like, for young children, who have had to deal with pedophilia or the witness of a murder, just really intense, horrific things. I took this book to the American Psychological Association. They have a children's publishing company. I thought this book should be in the hands of every therapist who works with children in the country. They wouldn't take it. They said the market was too small for this book. I could not believe it. But anyway, I did find a publisher for it who believed it. And this book has won awards. Dr. Oz was going to feature it on his show. I'm not sure that happened, but it's done very, very well to help little kids. The youngest client I ever sold a book for was Shania Fastia at 11. Why did I sell this book? What made it so easy? Shania created an anti-bullying curriculum and had already spoken to 100,000 children in schools. She's now 21 years old, doing her Hollywood singing and acting career. So age doesn't matter. The oldest person I've sold a book for, at least I got it under contract with an agent, was 89. And I billed that woman as the grandma Moses of the literary world, a voice that needed to be paid attention to. So it's always, that very unique twist in the pitch. Mm-hmm. One of the hardest books I personally ever edited, but it's going gangbusters, is a book called Slave, A Human Trafficking Survivor Finds Life. The man has a beautiful foundation helping children who have been trafficked, through expressive arts to heal. And his career is just speaking engagements all over the country, now of course virtually. Children's books. So there's all different categories of children's books, and they have very, very different standards and regulations in terms of word count, vocabulary limits, and page counts. And I have one of the gals who works for me. She's a former very big children's literary agent. And so she's my children's expert. So she helps everybody, to analyze the books and tell people where they need to be to get where they need to go. I'm not an expert in children's books. Any children's books I get in, I send them over to her. She actually created the middle grade imprint as well for HarperCollins. And she has sold everything from, picture books through young adult. So that's her world and her expertise.
So Randy, just real quick,
yes.
We've only got about 10 minutes left, just to kind of keep you on time here.
Okay, I'm just gonna be on quickly. This is a middle grade book I sold. Anyway, I'm just running through
questions
things
about fiction. How does fiction play into this?
Sure. So Red Mittens, I sold this book in a week. This is paranormal fiction, actually based on a true story. Right now, last month, actually, I had 2 novels picked up by different agents. And so what makes a novel sellable is absolutely stellar writing. And one of my fiction editors is a former publisher from Simon & Schuster. So guess who's analyzing that material to make sure it's really up to the standards that a Simon & Schuster level publisher would be interested in. So, I have to make sure that the books are really stellar before I pitch anything. So, we just analyze and we edit if something's necessary. And we tell the author right up front, like at the end of that analysis, is this book strong enough to get a publisher? Is it potentially strong enough? Or we're sorry, but no, it's just not going to make it to Simon & Schuster level publisher. So I have, let's see, I have a thriller, I have an action adventure, and I have a women's fiction under contract with different agents right now. And these are all top agents. They are agents who also sell to film. So usually the book has to do well in book form. I actually have a memoir right now that's just been optioned for Hollywood film, which is also very exciting. But usually the way it works is that the agent sells the book, and I always bring fiction directly to agents because they have the fiction contacts that I don't have. I'm very strong in the nonfiction category, but these agents, they're top agents and they've done six-figure deals, multiple agents for my clients.
Quick question that
Sure.
kind of goes back to something you said earlier.
Okay.
How can one find out the order of things that you referenced in the beginning of the session today? That sequence.
Typically, yeah. So typically it's analysis, editing, put together, book proposal if it's nonfiction. And if it's fiction, I'm really going to suggest that you do one section of the book proposal anyway, even though it's not required for fiction, but it's the difference between a sale and no sale. And that's called about promotions. And never say things like, I will work with the publisher too. No, they want to see what you're going to do without them, because they're going to bring their firepower to it, typically for 3 to 6 months, but they're going to want to see what you bring to the table. So it's really all about you there. There's a page in the book proposal that's not required, but if it's possible, I really encourage people to do it because I like to include it because I always want to tip the sale in your favor. And so, for example, in nonfiction, if you were to do a page, single space that says sample appearances, we could show all these different podcasts you've been on. Well, that shows a publisher. This is someone who's a go-getter, who's go-getting. Right now, one of my fiction authors who's under consideration with his project, have it with a top agent right now. He hired a marketing gal who's getting him 4,000 views on LinkedIn or on Instagram or different places, so we're able to show strong engagement. He's actually started a podcast because he's doing a series, like, fantasy author. If you're doing a series of books, or any author's doing a series, fiction or nonfiction, get a podcast going. He's doing a podcast in the name of his character, and he's generating buzz around his character. So do whatever you can to build those numbers. I tell people my sweet spot is get the content right. Get the book sold to a traditional publisher. That's my sweet spot. I'm not the marketing gal. I'm not the social media gal. That's why I have different people who I know are creating results for people. So, like how you know if someone's good or not. You see the results, that you've had the results yourself. So I hope that answers the question. A book that's sold to Wiley. I do want to share about Finding the Wow. This was a bored housewife in California. She and her 2 bored housewife girlfriends got together. They formed a group called the Chicks in Charge, and to take back the dreams they left behind. The end result? The author wound up with a full-page feature in Oprah and was interviewed on Hallmark TV, and the book has won various national awards. So here, bored housewife went to Oprah and Hallmark. And one of the things that helped her do that was that letter that I sent her to send out to people she knew, because she didn't have a huge list, but we leveraged lots of people's lists. This was a self-published book that I actually did sell to a publisher, but again, like I said, self-published books are a tough sell. 2 of my authors' books, Hired and 30 Days to Social Media Success, were in FedEx office stores at the same time, which is very cool. A board game was sold. A book for a nonprofit was sold. This is my first book. I'm sitting in a movie theater and there's an opening night of Eat, Pray, Love, and there's Julia Roberts holding up my Crappy to Happy book in a bookstore scene in the movie. I didn't even know they were going to use it. You have no idea what kind of magic and miracles can happen with traditional publishing, but these things do happen. Power of Miracle Thinking, my second book, I self-published. So again, like I said, I like self-publishing and I like traditional publishing for different reasons. A very niche book, got this book sold. I found a publisher who specialized in martial arts books for beginners. 30 Days, this was the first in a series of books, sold to Wiley, Young Adult, Moonbeam Award. Social Media Marketing for Boomers, active, gift book, sold in England. Support your fellow authors. And one of the ways, I'm coming right to the end of the slides, I'm talking really quickly. Support your fellow authors by giving each other back cover endorsements. Even if your book's not out, you can still be author of the upcoming book and then give your title. So get your titles on other people's books. You can support one another. So here is my last thing that I like to say and tell people is, one of the things I've discovered over the years is that your book is either your priority or it's an option. If it's a priority, you will make it happen and nothing is going to stop you. If it's an option, it will never happen. So ask yourself, is my book a priority or an option? And the last thing I want to do, I just want to share my contact information. If you want to get a hold of me, please do.
And I also wanted to mention, when we send out the follow-up link to today's recording on YouTube, you mentioned that you have a free download, and we'll have that link. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah. That's right. I forgot. I wrote this report called Write the Right Book. Because I said, this is a book you want to write, a book a publisher will buy. Are they the same book? And so whether you're writing memoir or you're writing a how-to, you're writing business, leadership, whatever.
Awesome.
I offer that report.
So there will, for everyone on the call today, there will be a follow-up email coming out shortly, and you'll receive Randy's contact information that you see here as well. It'll be in that email, and we'll have the link to her free download. And Randy, I just noticed I need you to send me that link if you could. We'll make sure it gets in the email.
Yes, of course.
We'll make sure it gets in the email that goes out. And
okay.
Tyrone, hi Tyrone. Tyrone's asking if you could also get us the name info of the person that helped build your LinkedIn following.
Oh yeah.
And then I'll include
Kathy,
that.
should I just send that to you? And
I'll include it in tomorrow's email. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, good.
Send that to me. And everyone's saying thank you. I don't know if you can see the chats.
There here. Let me. I got out of there. Yeah, you're very welcome. One of the things I tell people is I will never waste anyone's time or money. I am not about that at all. I love getting people book deals, but the book has to be stellar, and I have to believe it's sellable.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. Thank you so much for being here today. It's quite informational, and my guess is you're probably going to be hearing from a couple of people at least here today.
Sure.
So thank you, Randy. Thank everyone for being here, and be watching for the link to the recording, and that will go out here shortly. Thanks, everybody. See you next month. Bye-bye.